The Ukrainian scene is one on the rise. We're only a few months removed from my video about MPL, and here we are talking about his teammate and countryman, Kensizor. Now, Kensizor caught my eye whilst making his way through the Tier 2 space on the Kono/ECF roster. This was a roster with a deep, severe shortage of explosive rifle play, and one that Kensizor made up for almost single-handedly. The highlights in the demos were incredible, but it was the consistent frags that were more essential to winning games. Members of the court have been aware of his mechanical brilliance for a while, but the overall evaluation has been a little more complicated. Not only has he transitioned from Kono ECF onto Bait, but he also has far more to his game than just fragging highlights. I'm going to be taking a look at all things he does well with both hands, not just his aim, as well as his positioning and understanding of how to play his roles. Let's start with the obvious. Kensizor is incredibly sharp. The most obvious clue can be found in the statistics, where he has a pistol rating of 1.36 in 2025. His aim obviously translates into rifle play, though it's not really his most effective tool for being impactful on the rifles. Like a lot of young riflers that I talk about who actually ends up being more impressive, he does have very good spray control, but it's not just about the fact that he can spray at long range super consistently. It's not so much that. It's his ability to very quickly transition between killing one player to killing another one, making multi-kills happen in really tight scenarios, really tough spots, but there's not a lot of time to adjust, to reset aim. He's just got that great multi-kill spray ability. The players like Nota in the past have shown us on this channel. He's not necessarily that super tight in long-range sprays. It's just these multi-kill scenarios where you need to be able to control and transfer the spray, where he does really well. And now both these things, his aim and spray, are very important, very impactful. They're not actually his most lethal skill. By themselves, they're great, but you add on top some of the most obnoxious movement control I've ever witnessed in a demo, and you get someone who's incredibly difficult to kill, who also has the potential to kill multiple of your teammates whilst you're trying to do that. I figured this out because something was jarring me when I was watching Kensizor's demos, and it wasn't just his broken view model with his bent back wrists and his arms coming across the screen. There's some kind of bug in all of his demos. It was rather that no matter what was happening in the fight, my perspective was being shifted in some direction. And when I finally reversed viewpoints and started watching what it was like to fight him, I realized, man, this guy is so obnoxious and so difficult to kill. A lot of players obviously have been factoring in more and more movement into CS2 whilst, figuring out that it's really important for avoiding getting peaked too quickly, for making yourself a harder target. And sure, the classic example that a lot of us have seen is that donk slide. Kensizor's doing everything he can. He's sliding left, right, he's changing in verticality a lot. The sort of tricks that everyone does on pistol, but seems to forget as soon as they get a rifle out and have to start spraying. Kensizor is well aware of the fact that if you break your spray control by moving a bit, when you reset your movement, the spray continues as it should have been had you never moved. So he's able to chain together frags while staying dynamic in his movement, and that makes him such a problem. An excellent use of a mechanic that maybe we don't think too much about, maybe we don't notice, but it plays really well into his strengths with his spray and his aim, and it makes him an absolute nuisance. A linked yet distinctive skill is his timing and positioning when it comes to being a trade fragger. Now, this was something he primarily developed on Kono, as he was back then more of a trader than a tradee, which he kind of is now on Bait with his new roles. But if you watch the demos, you'll find a lot of the time playing off the shoulder. He knows when to swing, when to stay. He knows the sort of gap he has to leave to really make the most of his teammates' play, and he's always willing to play anti in the right moments. Now let's get into the CT side, but before you get on the defensive, I have one question for you. Are you tired of looking like a chump in game? Sick of opening cases and getting trash skins? Check out Skin Club via my link in the description for a 7% deposit bonus. For gamers 18 or older, Skin Club is a case opening service who run a provably fair opening algorithm to give you truly random outcomes. Skin Club's Battles mode has been upgraded, adding new things like Crazy, Team, and Share modes, just to make every roll a little more intense and a little more fun. I played a battle or two and managed to win some pretty crazy skins, and upgraded a group of them into a gorgeous MP9 hot rod. Perfect for some gold stickers. There is an awards event going on right now, so you can earn event points just by playing on the site. These points can be redeemed for cases, skins, and entries into huge giveaways. Skin Club accept a wide variety of payment methods, from cards and PayPal to skins themselves, as well as a range of crypto coins. Remember to play responsibly using the self-care tools provided, and use my link in the description to get a 7% bonus. A big thank you to Skin Club for supporting my channel. With his shift in responsibilities in Bait, he's become a slightly more sacrificial individual. So his overall fight profile still has a lot of opening attempts, a lot of mid-brawls, and big very important areas of conflict. He does also have a few more anchoring spots, and he doesn't quite play his roles in exactly the same way. He's being traded far more often, taking flack for his star IGL, who accompanies him on a lot of these opening attempts and opening maneuvers. A plus side to this is that he actually takes fewer critical deaths. Like back on Kono, if he died early, if he took the wrong swing, the rounds often would be dead on their ass. On this team, it's not the same. There is other options, there are backup plans, and a downside is, of course, that he doesn't put up anywhere near as nice numbers because he is being more sacrificial, but it's working. They're winning more rounds, they're playing super well, and he's still very impactful. It's just not as flashy in the stat sheet. One of my favorite maps to watch him on now is Ancient. It's a map he didn't really play on Kono, but it exemplifies what makes this move so dangerous in terms of everyone else facing bait. Because look, it's a map that's great for CT riflers, especially those who are aggressive. There's a lot of options, a lot of places you can play aggressively, you can challenge for map control, and so he's actually playing a lot through mid now, obviously kind of playing that sort of Malbs MD CT role we remember from last year, where he is technically the B anchor, or the A anchor rather, but he does actively fight mid more often than anything else. MPL and kensizor, they have a number of different ways they like to fight, or challenge mid, or try to control mid. They can go deep directly as a duo to just try and take that map control. They can kind of challenge the terrorists by just popping open the smokes. They do it at Donut constantly, but also to a lesser extent at Red Room, and then also using their utility to set each other up, just as individuals making more one-up plays. They have a lot of options on the board. Whilst back on Kono, he might have still played some of these roles similarly. One thing there you'll notice is that there's a lot more, it feels a lot more intentional, the way he's being set up, and there seems to be a grander plan and more variety to the ways he's being used at play here in Bait. One map that has been a very difficult and far greater change for kensizor has been Inferno, where he has shifted away from Banana on the CT side to now playing Apps on A, and it's a bit odd. I mean, he's still taking 22% of the team's opening fights on the CT side of Inferno, which is a bit odd considering where he plays, but that's just because his playstyle, he's going to tend to favor the more aggressive Apps plays, and they're just not as clean fights, they're just not as good as the fights he used to take back in Banana. A lot of rounds as well where he's sitting still for extended periods of time just doesn't seem like something he would be doing. Doesn't feel natural to watch. And all in all, it's resulted in a very, very weak Inferno CT rating. I think he's sub 1.0 on that map. It's been a difficult transition, and it's a massive shift in playstyle. So whilst there are some good things about this change to a new team, about not necessarily being a star, but there being more intention surrounding how he's used, there are some downsides, where here he's being clearly used as a supportive player, and it's just not working out. Finally, just to touch on a map that nothing much has changed, but MPL's still seen an increase in his rating, and it's a manifestation of what I mentioned earlier with the intention of how they use him and the variety of rounds and playing off of MPL. Mirage has been fantastic, and he is the short player, but he has MPL as his IGL playing in con, so they can manufacture openings with their aggression up mid, they can play off each other, use the comms, use a lot of different little tricks to gain control of mid, keep control of mid, and challenge T-sides. So that's a map that's worked out really nicely for them. He's been finding openings, trades, having his deaths traded. There seems to be good util setups. This is the map that really sets the tone for what it's been like so far on the CT side for kensizor on Bait. Over to the terrorist side, where more aggression awaits. Here we've done a clean switch in the responsibility profile. Gone are the majority of trading opportunities, and they've been replaced by more hard entry work, being traded, dying for the team, rather than always being set up. As a hard entry, he's been really effective. He's producing an opening kill or a traded death in just over 57% of his opening attempts. That's insanely productive. Almost a third of his total T-deaths are traded too, so it's really painted the picture of a guy who is being self-sacrificing. He's just giving away his life for the team over and over again, and it's working. They're finding the trades, they're finding those extra frags. It's different. He used to be the guy doing the trading. Now he's dying for the team. Something that concerned me whilst kensizor was on Kono was that his T-sides could get pretty predictable, repetitive, honestly uninteresting to watch, but very counterable if you're playing against him. Inferno, we had a lot of this pathing and util set where he's going up into the apps and then out of boiler, throwing a molly in a smoke and trying to get out through that. And it was very plodding and slow and honestly predictable. And then a few times, on a few occasions, it was countered outright by teams who just went out, challenged him when he's usually at this round. This time he's going to be jumping up, so we'll just peek out, shoot him in the head. There were some problems with it, and Inferno was the classic example. Dust 2, the same problem with him playing around short, and it just felt so vulnerable and readable. On Bait, there's a far greater number of ideas, I think, at work. ways to use him, ways for him to play, and it's made his demos far more interesting to watch, quite importantly. He's actually shifted on Inferno from playing apps to playing Banana, and it shouldn't have been a revelation to anyone. It should have been pretty obvious that it'd be successful, but it has been outstanding the way he's taken to the Banana fight. Sure, it's been rocky, like in terms of the consistency, it's been up and down, but it's a far more natural fight to be taking early, considering that's generally what he likes to do, is fight early. Banana is usually far more productive, and on a few occasions where they've really got it right, you know, he's come in with the right prep, the right strategy, the right approach, I guess. He's felt the timings right. He's been able to win them Inferno maps outright, so it's been a vital change to get him out of apps, which I just didn't think really suited him in terms of the default he was in Kono, and now on Inferno, he's becoming more of a weapon on that T side, which has already been stronger than his CT side, but hasn't quite reached the levels of, just in terms of the ratings, just the levels he was on in Kono. So overall, the bait move is still fresh, and there are a number of changes that need to be factored in, considered when we look at realistic what is an overall decline in fragging output. Now, bait themselves are winning over 60% of their maps, and look, he's playing well within the system, so there's no real complaints from their side, I assume. It's just, we'll take some time to see his output in terms of his fragging rise up, although I don't think it'll ever return quite to the peaks we saw on Kono, just because of the nature of his new roles, responsibilities, and the way the team seem to want to play. Now, his overall style is quite hectic and wild, and I think that's demonstrated perfectly by the movement mechanics when he's taking duels, and I'm not really sure how to factor that into my typical assessment of a player's skill ceiling and skill profile. He does a pretty good job of just being slippery, and so he's going to score fairly well in both explosiveness and control. It's just, again, difficult for me to factor in which side I'd really give the movement credit for, but it's part of the fragging assessment, I guess. And he's playing the right way in CS2, let's put it that way. Currently, I do think he's quite a decent chunk off of being a tier 1 pro, at least a tier 1 star. I think he could fill a role pretty soon, but think about how long it took Fame to really start being effective on Virtus Pro. I think we're not talking that long of a development path necessarily, but it's still going to take a while, I think, to reach sort of tier 1 caliber, especially as a star rifler. Now, I know currently when I place him on this graph, it's not going to be the most flattering position, but remember, the standards of this show are pretty harsh. We do talk about some of the best prospects available, in my eyes, and so they often end up with quite strong grades, and his placement is reflective of that. I think he could still hit a quite good level, just not going to be as flattering in this placement. Let me end with this. I'm quite excited in terms of what I've seen from kensizor on the server. I mean, he's going to be a strong piece in this team, and he's made them dangerous in a way that very few players can, where he's coming in to play a role, and despite his role, he is going to frag very explosively. It's going to be very impactful, and it's going to give teams a headache in terms of how they counter-strat, because there's weapons now just filling up spot after spot on this bait roster, and they're starting to grow from strength to strength, building into 2025. So this move, I gave it an A+ when I saw it. Since then, I've had to look a bit deeper than just the raw numbers to see the impact of it, but it has been pretty much what I wanted to see. Bait are crazy stacked with rifle power now, and kensizor is a huge part of it. Alright, if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me your thoughts. Sub if you want to see more content, and remember that members get access to a bunch of bonus content. See you in the next one. Goodbye.